Hey, hello. The time is so that we should start, so whoever joins us can join us later. Welcome to Hariduspeegel, and thank you for joining our webinar today on the topic of English and the various tests and exams that we'll cover today. My name is Liis Vetera, and I, along with Kristi Ruse and Kaia Norberg, are all specialists of English, and we are also joined by Katriin Visamaa from the Testing Administration Office. And then let's get started. This is a scale that we all know very well, the Common European Framework of Reference, and today's schedule will go along this topic as well. We'll start with the lower end and then get progressively higher. So we'll talk about placement tests, the A2 level test, year 9 final exam, the computer-based final exam development, and then we'll talk about the various choices that students finishing upper secondary school have when choosing their foreign language exam with the focus on English. At the end of each topic, you'll have the chance to ask questions. You can ask with your microphone or in the chat as well. We'll keep an eye on that. And we've saved some time at the end where you can also present your questions if you have any that arise over the course of the presentation. Okay, and then let's move on to the first topic, which is placement tests.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Kristi Ruse, and I will be speaking about the placement tests that are available in English. Okay, so all placement tests are computer-based tests, which are done in A's, and we provide 3 tests on levels A2, B1, and P2. So the aims of these tests is to indicate how students manage with tasks on a particular level, to show the strengths and weaknesses of the students' language skills, and also provide feedback for the student and the teacher. The placement tests in English are rather short tests, and they test only 2 skills, so reading and listening. All the tasks are assessed by the computer, and so obviously then computer and headphones are needed, since the tests include listening tasks. And all the tests start by checking the headphones and the audio. So the background of the placement tests in English is that they are rather short, as I mentioned already, and they do not actually say that the student has reached this level, but they indicate that the student has completed the test with tasks of a particular level, and then they get feedback to see if they did well, struggled a bit, or need to practice more. Okay, so when is the best time to take these tests? At the beginning of the school year, for example, during the first months, let's say, or when you have new students or students coming from other schools and you have no idea what their language level is like, then you can get some feedback and an idea or overview of their level. One of the tests, B1 level test, is already available, and the other ones, A2 and B2, will become available starting from September. So as I mentioned, the tests are available in A's, and they are available for the teacher. So teachers can assign the tests to their students, and there is actually a guide in Estonian on Harna webpage where you can find lähtetaseme testid and then move on. But my colleague will provide a link in the chat so that maybe it's easier for you to find these guides with screenshots, and they are rather simple and clear. Now the students take the test then, and they do the reading tasks and the listening tasks, and they get feedback and their results right after they have completed the test. Now, in feedback, colors are used. So green indicating that the student did well, orange or yellow showing that he or she struggled a bit, and red showing that he or she needs to practice more. And I will show you some examples of feedback in a minute. But for you as teachers, then try to guide your students and remind them to read the feedback and the results. So that is the aim of the tests, to get some feedback, and please take some time to analyze the results yourself, because you can plan your work, your lessons, and you can see the results of the whole group of class as well as individual students. So as I mentioned, then 3 tests are available, and in this slide you can see the IDs of A2, B1 and B2 level placement tests. As mentioned, skills that are tested are reading and listening, and use of English as part of reading. A2 level test is meant for year 7, for example, and it has A2 level tasks in it. The aim is to test the understanding of the main idea of the text, finding information, using grammar forms, and so on. B1 level test is meant for students who have reached B1 level, so let's say year 9 and 10 students. And a B2 level then for upper secondary students. All the tests take about 40 minutes, and there's, I think, 5 minutes to read the feedback, or it takes about 5 minutes. Now this is an example of a feedback that a student gets. So the skills there, then reading, listening, use of English are shown here with some comments, and also with some useful suggestions. So try to read more texts, short stories about everyday things, and so on. And you can also see that the red is then used for information that shows that the student needs to practice more, or needs to watch more videos, listen to different recordings, and so on. and green then is the highest level here. Okay, and as I mentioned, then teachers get feedback on about their students. I have added here only one skill, so reading. And if the teacher opens the number here on the right, for example, 14, then he or she can see the names and results of students. Okay, now do you have any questions about the placement tests?
There was a question, which levels would be at our disposal right now?
Yes, at the moment, B1 test is available. In the presentation, we had the ID of the test, which was 9034. This is available at the moment, and starting from September, then A2 and B2 level tests. Any other questions? Okay, if not, then let's move.
Sorry, I'd like to specify. So the others, was it A2, B2 will be available at the beginning of September sometime? Yeah?
Yes.
Do you send a notice to the participants of this meeting? Like when the tests are ready?
Sorry, could you?
Do you send a notice to the participants when the other levels are ready?
I don't think we do.
Yeah, we don't send any notices, but you as teachers will then know that the tests are available starting from September, and then you can decide when you take them, when you assign the tests, and you can use the tests at the same time in one class, let's say, but test different levels. So that is also your choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so since we have a lot of information today, so then okay, there's another question.
Will it be the very
Yes,
beginning?
it's they should be available starting from the 1st of September. So yes, the very beginning of September. And there are 3 tests, so and 1 for each level then. Okay, so now let's go on then with A2 level a test in English, tasemetöö on level A2, and okay, this is something that probably many of you have done already. So it first took place in 2021, and last year in October over 3,000 students took the test. This year it will be available at right after the break, starting from the 31st of October. And this is the time for the written test, and then you have more days, more time to schedule your speaking tests. Now, participation in this year is voluntary, meaning that schools decide whether to take it or not. But of course, it is a very good way to get feedback. And that is the idea of the test, to provide feedback for the student as well as the teacher and the school. But there is no sample, which means that then schools decide whether to take part or not. But well, yes, we recommend you to take part, because then students will feel more comfortable, and they get the experience, and they see that it's actually something that is not to be scared of. Now, usually year 7 is considered, according to our national curriculum, it's considered to be suitable for year 7. And since the test includes 4 skills, now this is a more detailed test, then not only headphones, but also a microphone is needed because of the speaking part. And Chrome or Firefox should be used for taking the test, because then the quality is guaranteed. Okay, now, as I mentioned, 4 skills then, and you can see the task types here. But briefly about last year's results. Now, 58% of the students got to level A2. 18% almost reached the level, and 24% of the students did not reach A2 level. Obviously, when you look at the skills and the results here, you can see that speaking is the most difficult for this level, and that is okay, because an A2 student does not feel that comfortable maybe about speaking. But we have sample tests for both parts, for written part and for speaking part. So here you can see the IDs. So for the written part, then 9133, and for the speaking, then 7795. So tip number 1 for you would be to go through the tests together with your students, for example, in the classroom, so that they just see the types, the tasks, and they feel more comfortable, and you feel more comfortable. So use them, and you will get an idea what is going to happen, especially maybe with speaking. Don't be afraid of the tests, because students will manage just fine. But again, if you go through it, then they will just know what to expect. But then some tips just for you that you probably use in your everyday work. So remind your students to read the instructions. The instructions are clear and short, so nothing difficult there. To focus on tasks, there is no need to rush. They have enough time. They have 60 minutes for the written test. And well, obviously check spelling, and just read through everything that they have written. And well, since the tests start with checking the audio and the microphone, then this is the time when they can ask for help if something is not working. They have time and they have a chance to listen to the audio files twice, so I encourage them to use that time and then double check everything. Okay. Now the written test, the students do the written components all together in one computer lab, and they have 60 minutes for this. So here is just one example of a reading task. All reading tasks are assessed by the computer, and as you can see, nothing long or difficult there. So a writing task for this level is a short task, usually an email or a short letter, and here a student needs to answer rather simple questions about his or her everyday life. No need to worry about the salutation or sign off because they are provided, and so just the students need to write the short email, and the task is assessed by using a marking scale. I will speak about it in just a minute. Okay, listening tasks are also automatically assessed. They are short exchanges, dialogues, something that any student can catch. And then the speaking test has 5 or 6 tasks, and now the advice is not to have too many students in one room taking the speaking test, because then it just they don't feel comfortable. They don't have maybe this time to focus. Again, practice speaking. So if they have 60 seconds, then encourage them to speak for 60 seconds. Practicing as part of homework maybe, or in the classroom, is always useful. And try to speak as much as you can, because then you have material, enough material to assess. And then the written and speaking tasks are assessed by you as their English teachers. So it's done in A's, and I think some of you have done it and have seen that it's nothing overwhelming. So it's nothing difficult, so don't be afraid. But it's useful to check your email address, because ACE sends you notifications when you have to start assessing, and also notifications when you have, let's say, 3 days to do it, or you're just running, or the 8 working days is about to finish. There was a more detailed instruction in last year's webinar. So if you just find the Hariduspeegel 2022, but my colleague will also provide a link in the chat, a YouTube link. So then you can just find it there. It starts, I think, around 30 minutes or so, and there was a detailed guide how to assess the speaking and writing tasks. Okay, and just quickly, feedback for the student. Now the feedback is in Estonian, and you can see that under the skills, and there are some explanations. So that again, remind your students to read the feedback. So after the results have been published, then it's very useful maybe to go through the feedback together with your students. And then in the other slide, there's an example of how the teacher gets feedback. Now again, if you open the number of students, then you can read the feedback of each student separately. Okay. Okay, do you have any questions? Was there a question in the chat?
Let me see. As of right now.
I have a
Okay,
question. If you
Yes.
first of all, listening is the passages for listening recorded by Americans or the British people?
Well, we try to use both, and well, that's what life is all about. So you have to listen to different people speaking, but we do not use only one specific British accent.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, because in the exams, the final exams for 10th grade, sorry, for the 9th grade and the 12th grade, most recordings are done by the Americans. As a matter of fact, all the course books used in the country are British published. And of course, the listening tasks are with a British accent. And it's very confusing for students to face bluntly the American accent. It's very confusing. I understand we live in a world where a lot of accents are around us, but for these kind of purpose, I would suggest sticking to the British accent. And the second question, speaking actually, I mean, the learning a language is for the communication purposes, and speaking to a computer is not real communication. How would you explain that? Thank you.
Well, we will speak about the future, which also involves computer-based speaking exams in a minute, in a bit. But well, our idea is to provide to provide the situation when all the students have the same opportunities and the same how would you say, environment input, yes, so that the questions are asked by the computer, so all the students are they receive the questions in exactly the same way, and well, then it is like an even.
Of course, the communication aspect will remain in classrooms all throughout the 9 to 12 years when students learn. But for the examination purposes, we've found that here, of course, there are considerations for both sides, but this also allows us to assess more precisely. We're able to assess each task separately, so if a student is nervous in the beginning and that affects the first half of their interview in the current state, then this is assessed, or if they do poorly in one task but better in another, then the assessor is able to view each task separately and give fair marks. And of course, we know that both aspects have their strengths and weaknesses, but currently we have chosen to, for the level test already in action, to try this. And since the 7th grade level tests are quite short and the tasks themselves are quite short, this so far has shown to be fruitful.
They have managed just fine. So yes, so the assessment is also can be time saving. But thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. I have the third question. As far as I understand, the placement test for B2 level is not ready yet.
It is not available yet, yes.
Okay, thank you.
But we will publish it in September. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, then maybe let's go on. But please contact us if you have any questions. But now about the Year 9 exam.
So I will start. Yeah. Okay, hello from me, and my name is Kaia Norberg, and I'm responsible for the paper-based exam of Year 9 in English. And I can say about the exam that it has had the same format since 2014. So I just realized that actually in 2023, the exam celebrated its 10-year anniversary. And yeah, so it has been using the same format for 10 years. So I would like to say a few words about the exam statistics that you can also see on the screen. And perhaps something that is worth noting is the fact that the exam is increasingly popular. So in 2023, more than 8,000 students picked this exam. And as you know, it is an elective exam, which means that it is not compulsory for students to take it. But actually 55% of all year 9 students chose English, which makes it the most popular elective exam. You can see in the table that, well, as you all remember, hopefully in 2020, we did not really have the exam, so that's why there is no data about it. But yeah, in 2023, then more than 8,000 students taking the exam, and the average then is almost 90%, the mean score, I mean. And I think the reason, of course, might be that students usually choose the subject they are good at, and that's why the average score is so high. So the exam then targets B1 level, and there are 4 parts in the exam: so listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The exam lasts for about 2 hours and 30 minutes. And there are different task types in different parts of the exam. So in listening, we have open gap fill, we have matching, we have multiple choice. In reading, also multiple choice and matching, and close. In writing, the students need to write a description and a letter to a friend, and in speaking then 2 parts, describing a picture and role play. And based on the statistics, then the more challenging parts were speaking and reading this year. It actually varies from year to year. And listening this year was the easiest. And perhaps from all the task types, then the hardest for students was word formation. As you know, then in 2023, the students did not get a mark for the exam. They only got points, and they needed 50 points to pass the exam. So, some more statistics for those who are interested. You can see that the total number here is 1,561. So this is actually the sample of the exam, and about 11% of all test takers belong to the sample. But you can also see that the average of the sample is more or less the same as it was for all of the test takers. And yeah, we can see that the boys, well, the girls are doing a bit better, but the difference is not that remarkable, really. And approximately the same number of students then belonging to the sample. So, and then finally from me, in 2024, the exam will follow the same, the paper-based exam then will follow the same existing format. The dates will be announced soon, hopefully tomorrow, actually, by the Minister of Education, who is going to have a press conference. The students need to inform which elective exam they would like to take. They would need to inform the school by the 1st of February. And as usual, then there will be training sessions for teachers in spring, usually in March. But it's not really compulsory to attend these sessions, but it is advisable for new teachers and perhaps those who haven't been assessing mostly the speaking part then for some time. And perhaps the biggest change when it comes to administering the exam is the fact that in 2024 there won't be any more CDs sent to schools. So all schools need to download the audio files from AIS. We tried this out already this year when we sent one CD per school, and our feedback was really positive from schools. They were able to find the files, to download them, and everything worked out just fine. So the plan is to switch from the paper-based exam to the computer-based exam real soon. Lisbeth will tell you more about this, but if you have any questions about the paper-based exam, then please ask. Is there anything in the chat? I think not. No? Okay. So I think that everybody is really well acquainted with this exam because, as I said, it has been around for 10 years. But thank you for your attention, and then we continue with our topics.
Just a second. We apologize. There was a very last-minute camera issue that did not appear in several test runs, but we are managing quite nicely. Okay, so I will talk a bit about the computer-based Year 9 English exam and how far along with it we are. When we are talking about the timeline of the implementation of the computer-based exam, we are currently operating under the assumption that spring of 2025 will be the first year when we have a computer-based Year 9 English exam, as well as the Estonian Year 9 exam and Estonian as a second language. However, there's a big caveat. There is nothing about this decision yet in the legislation. So this decision will be made later, but currently we are operating under the assumption that 2025 will be the first e-exam year. So we are working to be ready with our exam, for schools to be ready, for students and teachers to be ready. And in order to do that, in the spring of next year, we will have a wide-scale test run of the Year 9 computer-based exam. This means that all students who choose to take English as their elective at the end of the coming school year will participate. And this will give schools a very good opportunity to make sure that they are ready for the computer-based exam, for an entire set of 9th graders to take an exam at the same time. And this will also be very useful for students themselves, because they will most likely, if they choose to continue with upper secondary school, also take the state exam in a computer-based form. And for teachers as well, this is a great opportunity to really know what this change means and how big or small the change actually is. Okay, and about the exam itself. So the computer-based exam is still testing English skills, not digital skills. We worked for several years to make sure that this is the case. It still is a B1 level exam, not a digital competency. It's still based on the national curriculum and the Common European Framework. And it still tests 4 skills. So far, we've had 5 test runs of it. The last 3 have been at the entire exam, which means all 4 skills. There have been 2 smaller scale ones before that. And the most recent test run took place in March of this year. And it included all the schools in the city of Tartu and Harku County, which meant about 700 students. And we are very grateful for all the schools that participated and all the teachers who helped us in this test, because it was a large undertaking, but it gave us a lot of valuable information, both about the contents of the exam and also the organization and all of the problems that can arise with this shift, but also all of the good things that can come of it. And we really valued all of the feedback that we received, both from the students and the teachers, and also the school staff, the IT teams, and organizing personnel. The computer-based exam is still made up of 2 parts, a written part and a speaking part. The written part, consisting of listening, reading, and writing, is slightly shorter than the current paper-based exam. If the paper-based exam is 135 minutes, if my math is correct, then this is 90 minutes. And experience has shown that students need less time when taking a computer-based exam. The most recent test showed that more than half of the students finished within an hour, but this 90 minutes gives everybody the chance to take the exam to the best of their abilities. And the speaking part is still about 15 minutes, depending on movements and a couple of minutes here or there. The 2 biggest organizational changes in the content is in the listening and speaking parts. In the listening parts, and this is similar to the A2 level test as well. In the listening part, there will no longer be one big track that the school gets and then plays on the speakers. Instead, students will listen with their headphones at their own pace. There will still be a limit to how many times they can listen to the audio file, which is 2. They won't be able to pause in the middle of it, but they will be able to choose when to listen to it. So they are able to move freely between the listening, reading, and writing tasks. And if they wish, maybe listen once, write the answers, move on with the exam, and then when they're checking their answers, listen for the second time. So this gives students a bit more autonomy, but they are still within the boundaries of the exam environment. And of course, in the speaking part, students will read and hear questions from ACE in the form of audio files and then record their answers. And then assessors will later be able to assess each task separately at their own pace and convenience. Of course, there's a time amount that you have, but This will allow you to, for example, listen to some answers several times, pause, take a break, and this is a slight change, we know, but the more practice we get with it, the easier it is. Here are some examples of the tasks. This is a sample exam of the computer-based one. So these are publicly available. On the left, you can see a multiple choice task, which is in the current paper-based exam, the first reading task. So instead of circling the correct answer at the bottom of the page, the student is able to click on a drop-down menu. And on the right, you can see a word formation task as well. Here, a couple of examples of listening tasks, multiple choice, and an open-close task. And here, there are 3 examples of speaking tasks. On the left, there's a simple question, which a student listens to twice, and then there's they have to start speaking right away as the answer is recorded automatically. In the middle, there's the traditional picture description with helpful questions that they have 2 minutes to answer. And then on the right, there's a variation of the current paper-based exams role-playing game. And here, a student hears a voice message. They have 2 options that they have to discuss and then ultimately suggest one. So the principle is the same, just the format is slightly different. Okay, and let's talk a bit about the assessment as well. Similarly to the A2 level test, reading and listening tasks are assessed by A's. And which this means is that we enter the task, we enter the correct answers, the incorrect answers, and then as soon as students submit their answers, ACE checks them. Of course, afterwards, we will, a person will go over it, so nothing is completely a black box. We will see if ACE is checking everything correctly. And here it's also important to remind students that spelling and grammar are vital, especially with open-close tasks, because ACE is only as smart as we make it, so we will enter all of the variations of the correct answers, American, British spelling, shortened form, full forms. And of course, after students finish their exam, we will see if anybody has come up with an answer that is correct but hasn't been entered yet. And this will be then counted correct as well, but we won't be entering answers with a slight typo. So here, students have to make sure that their spelling and grammar is correct. And since teachers won't have to assess multiple choice tasks or matching tasks, you have more time and energy to spend on writing and speaking tasks, which are still assessed by teachers and fully in your hands. And in a bit, I'll show you what this looks like. Many of you are familiar with it because the system is the same as in level 2 tests. And if you've been a part of any of the test runs for the computer-based exam. And we are also starting work on an online training program. So if you've taken the year 12 state exam speaking assessor or interviewer training program, then it will be a similar structure, just to introduce how grading works in ACE and how to do it to the best of your abilities and as quickly and as painlessly as possible. And we can guarantee you that the more assessment you do in ACE, the easier it becomes. I know that personally, as a former teacher and as from the feedback that we received this year, when we received feedback from teachers who assessed their year 9 practice exam, that if they had assessed something before in ACE, it was much more convenient and faster. And this is an example of what the assessment page looks like for a teacher. This is a letter task. On the left, you can see the student's answer, in this case mine. You can enter points. On the right, you can see the grading rubric. this won't be the final one. This is a work in progress. This is from a test run. Yeah, you can also see how the student saw the task, ask questions, which we will answer, and in general, everything that you need is here. It just needs a bit of practice. And going back, also, A's will do the mind-numbing task of reading, of counting the words as well. So if there's a minimum amount of words that a student needs to write, if it's under it, A's will immediately tell you that. So this is a helpful tool as well. And here's an example of how assessing works in a speaking task. So again, you can listen to the student's answer. You can see what they were asked. You can also see in Lähtetaseme what screen the student saw exactly, and listen to the question as well if you wish. Okay, and before I finish with the Year 9 part, we have added some new B1 level practice reading and listening tasks in A's. So if you go to log in, you click töölaud, e-kogud, and search for English, then you can see new B1 and actually B2 level reading and listening tasks as well. And we have also commissioned some writing and speaking tasks that we will make publicly available as soon as they are ready, and have passed several vetting processes. So then those will be ready for you to use on your students as well. Okay, I will later talk about the state exam development, but do you have any questions about this part?
You see the question in the chat?
Yes, it's quite. If students are talking at the same time, this is a difference with the A2 level test. When in the A2 level test, there can be several students in the same room. In the exam environment, there can only be one student in a room at the same time. We tested variations of this in spring, and depending on how big your school is, how many students you have in 9th grade, how many students are taking the English exam, then you have options. The school Tabasalu, which had about 100 test takers in one day, managed it so that they had 20 rooms in operation at the same time, and students came in, went out. Some other schools spread it out over several days, had 1 or 2 assigned rooms where students can take their speaking test. So this is a difference. There can be only one student in a room at the same time. And how can we provide students if most schools only have 2 rooms with computers and devices? Here, it also depends on what is the state of your computer lab. If you have only stationary personal computers, then you're limited to that. If you have some laptops that you can set in rooms as well, and here, depending on your school, you also have options. If you have smaller classrooms that you can use for this, if you again, I think some schools use the headmaster's office as the examination, as a second examination room as well, because they could easily displace the principal for that period of time. So this is up to the school of how you can manage this. And of course, we can help you. We have several different working models for this that we can share of how this can work. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one question. It's a common, basically. I found some discrepancy in the design of the tests. In giving the task, you for listening, you said record and stop. And it says
yes,
you should speak for 30 seconds. But in the reading section, unexpectedly, you get volley. Why?
Yes, this is because the screenshots were taken at different points in time. Some of the screenshots were taken early in the fall, and some were taken last week. And since there have been no active tests in ACE for a couple of months, there have been some updates. And the user interface, the translations are still in the works. So this is simple. Since during summer, the ACE team was able to do some updates that they couldn't do when there were active tests. And this will all be fixed. So don't worry about that. We've already noticed that. We've addressed this. So this will all be quite uniform by the time there's actual testing again.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not right now, then we'll move on. But if you have any questions, then at the end you can also ask them. And Katrin.
Hello, my name is Katrin Isamaa, and I am part of the test administration team in Hõõrno. And right now I'm gonna just give you the context for the next speakers. So you all know that in order for the students to graduate from the upper secondary school, they have to take 3 state exams. One in mathematics, one in Estonian, and then the third one is state exam in a foreign language. And just to give you this overview so that you would be able to inform the students as well when they ask, is that in a foreign language, the student can have several options. They can either pass the English state, the state exam in English, or they can take the C1 advanced exam offered by Hõõrno, or they can also pass internationally recognized French or German language exam organized by Hõõrno. So it's possible to choose also other languages, as well as there is an option to submit a certificate of international English, French, German, or Finnish language proficiency test, which should be at least on B1 level. You have to notice that when they decide to submit the certificate that they have taken on their own, then the deadline to submit it is by 20th of January, which means that they have to take the exam earlier than that. And just to say the same things when it comes to English only. So when the student has decided to take the exam in English, the student can choose between 3 options. So one option would be to take the English language state exam, which is on B1 or B2 level. Then the second option would be taking the C1 advanced exam, which is on C1 level and can also provide feedback on B2 or C2 level. Or the third option would be submitting the certificate of English language proficiency of at least B1 level. Also, the deadline is January 20th. Next year, it would actually mean that the student need to submit the certificate by 22nd of January, because 20th of January would be on the weekend. And here's also the list of the certificates that are recognized by us. In addition to Cambridge exams, also IELTS, TOEFL, or Pearson's general test are acceptable. And the just important thing to remind the students is that they can just pick one of those options. And maybe a little bit of statistics also to share with you. Last school year, we had actually more than half of the students taking the C1 advanced exam. So it was 54% of them. Then we had 44% of the students taking the English state exam, and then a bit more than 100 students taking or presenting the certificate that they had taken on their own. So this was the statistics for the students who choose to take the state exam in English. And now we're gonna discuss all those different options offered by Harno and Kristi.
Okay, so I will, maybe you have some questions for Katrin at this moment? No, later, yes, maybe. But I will then continue with the state exam or year 12 national exam, we can call it that. Now, as mentioned by Katrin, it is a B1, B2 level exam, and it has 4 skills: writing, listening, reading, and speaking. This is an exam that you probably know well and have had. You have had some work with that. Okay, so then let's go on. Now, the number of test takers. Katrin said that it was around 4,000. Yes, 3,980 took the test in at the beginning of May, and then some also took it at the end of May, because we provide this for students who are ill or for some reason can't take it. The mean score was very similar to previous years, so it was 68, almost 69%, so which is very close to 2022 and 21. Okay, maybe the lowest score, and nobody got 0 points, so the lowest score was 2 points, and the highest was then maximum 100 points. Okay, now the levels then, who achieved the level B2. So around half, so 51% of the test takers reached B2 level. Well, this is something that is also very similar to the previous years, although it has risen a bit. 29% then received B1 level, and unfortunately 20% of the students did not achieve the level. Okay, now there were around 1,600 boys taking the test, so around 40% of them, of the test takers, were boys, and then 60% were girls. The mean score of boys was higher than that of the girls. So the mean score for boys was 72, and for girls it was around 66. Okay, so here in the statistics, then you can then also see that 26% of the boys got B1 level, 58 B2, and the number was a bit lower with girls for B2 then. Okay, now talking about the next year, the state exam, the written paper will be on the 2nd of May, and then schools have 4 days to take the speaking test. So they can either take it on the 2nd or the 3rd of May, or the 6th or the 7th of May. And for those students who, for some, let's say, health issues, cannot participate in the exam at the beginning of May, then we provide additional time at the end of May. The students need to register by the 20th of January, or as mentioned, I think it's Saturday, so by the 22nd of January then. And as Kaja already mentioned, then one change is that no more CDs will be sent to schools. So then you can download the audio files from ACE, which has worked well, and you have probably used this opportunity. Okay, a few words about the teacher training for those who assess the oral examination on the speaking part. The training courses are in ACE, and they have been there since I think it was 2021 or so. And last spring we had nearly 300 teachers taking the test. And so the feedback that we got was positive, since we allow the time that you can take the test is almost 1 month, so you can choose the time yourself, and it's very convenient and comfortable for you. You don't have to go somewhere, and you can just do it whenever you feel that you have time.
And you can take it in several parts.
Yes, you can take it in several parts, meaning that if you start on Monday and you have 30 minutes, then you just ACE then saves your answers, and if you continue the next day, you can do it. So no worries, you just continue. You don't have to do it. It takes about 3 hours, but you can do it on different days. Okay, so we will probably open the registration in January, starting from the 22nd, and we will provide information on Horno webpage. And then starting from 15th of February till the 20th of March, then you have time to complete the assessor's training course. We have added some new videos of students' performances there, and that is all worked well. So you have several interviews there that you can assess and then compare your points to the ones given by experts. Okay, so just quickly how you can check if you have the right to assess the speaking part. Then you should open ACE and find this teacher's view, ace.edu.ee, and find testide läbiviimise nõusolekud under your name. And if you open that, then under your profile, you can see the time that you last took the training course. It's not a test, but it's a course, yes. So if you took it in, let's say as in my example here in 2022, then it is, you have the right to assess for 3 years. If you took it in 2021, then it's okay. So it means that you have the right to assess in 2024 as well. But if you did it before that, or if you have not assessed before then, you should take it next year in February or March.
And even if you have, then it's a good way to brush up on skills.
Because you just go through the procedures again, and it is a very good way, because you as teachers and as assessors do it once a year, so that's why it's very useful to go through it again before the exam. So and well, in February and March, well, then find this 2 or 3 hours and just split it into parts and go through it. It's very useful. Okay, any questions about the paper-based test at the state exam for year 12? But if not, then yes, please just contact us whenever you have questions. We'll now continue with
the developments in the computer-based state exam in English. Change this. Okay. So much of what applies to the year 9 computer-based exam still applies to state exam. But similarly to the year 9, we are operating under the assumption that there will be a computer-based exam as opposed to a paper-based exam. And the target year for that right now is year 2026. So that means that our exam has to be ready, and we have to prepare schools, teachers, students for that. Of course, again, legislation has not been confirmed yet on this topic, but hopefully it will be. The thing to know about the computer-based state exam is that we are planning quite a large-scale test run of it in this fall, in the week of October 16th. And for this, we are inviting all state upper secondary schools, municipal upper secondary schools, private schools, and vocational schools to participate. And we will send out invitations and information about this to schools at the end of August, beginning of September at the latest. But if you already think that maybe this would be useful to practice this, to see how prepared your school is for this, we highly recommend that you should contact us and let us know. And of course, you can ask questions about it, what it would entail, how much is required with this test. But we believe that, and experience has shown that these tests and participating in them is highly valuable for the school as well as us who will get information from it. And if you do choose to take part in this computer-based state exam test, then this means that all year 12 students who plan to choose English as their foreign language exam, either as a state exam or as C1 Advanced, need to take part in this. And even if your students take the C1 Advanced and maybe are at the C2 level even, we are moving towards a computer-based Cambridge exam anyway, so this would be a good opportunity for students to also practice how it is to take a test in a computer environment as opposed to a paper one. In general, the year 9 test runs for computer-based exams take place in spring, but for the state exam, they will take place in the autumn. So the burden, all of the effort, everything that is required of this proper test run is not in one season, so it's spread out across the year a bit more. So we are also planning to do another test run in the spring of 25, if all goes to plan. 24, sorry. Okay, much like with the year 9 exam, this exam still tests English skills, not digital competency. Still a B1, B2 level test. It's still based on a national curriculum and the framework of reference for languages. This test has been tested a bit less than the year 9 one. There's been one test run of the entire exam with all 4 skills, but several previous smaller scale test runs. And the most recent test run was in February of last year, and it included 7 upper secondary schools, and it was a bit under 200 students. So this upcoming test is very important. We hope to have a lot of more students, and we can get a lot more information and feedback about how a state exam would work in a computer-based environment on a larger scale. The computer-based state exam is made up of 3 parts. One written part is listening and reading, which is 90 minutes. Another is writing tasks, which is also 90 minutes. And the speaking task is still about 15 minutes, depending on the student and circumstances, a minute here or there. Again, students are able to listen autonomously with headphones. The number of times the students can listen is still limited. One exercise has 1 allowed listening number, the others have 2. There's no way around that. And similarly to year 9, students' speaking test is recorded in the computer, and assessors will then later assess each task separately. Okay, here are some examples of the B1, B2 level exercises. On the left, there's a matching task with texts and questions about texts. And on the right, you can see a listening task with matching tasks, where students have to match questions or statements to recorded answers. And here as well, we can see that some bits are in Estonian, but that is a development question that will fix by the beginning of September, just updates that happened in the meantime. Okay, so what all of this means for assessment. Again, reading and listening tasks are assessed by ACE automatically as soon as students submit their answers. We will, of course, make sure that ACE is assessing everything correctly. We will go over open-close tasks to make sure that if students have come up with answers that several rounds of experts have not, then of course we will add that if they are correct. And see if there's anything that needs to be fixed here, but these matching tasks, multiple choice tasks, short answer gap tasks are suitable for ACE to assess on its own without bothering human assessors. And writing and speaking tasks are still assessed by our central assessors. Well, this is a change for the current paper-based one, where we want to move towards a centralized assessment for speaking tasks as well. At least for this year's test run, we'll try out that. So if your school decides to take part in the test run, then you won't have to assess the speaking task either. However, since we are assessing that centrally and training assessors for this, then if you wish to take part in this and see how state exam assessment might look like in the future and what it looks like now, then this is a great opportunity to take part, because in the next few weeks we'll announce and we'll open application to be a central assessor for this test run of the state computer-based state exam. So if you want to take part, see the kitchen side of things, then this is a great way to do this. And much like with B1 tasks, we have added B2 level reading and listening tasks, and we will hopefully soon add speaking and writing tasks as well that you can then assign to students. Not yet, but hopefully by the end of the year is the goal to add these as well. And do you have any questions? There are quite a few in the chat. Let me see, where was the last question that I saw?
Will you send me the invitation to become an assessor?
We won't send the invitations individually, but if you keep an eye on Harno's Facebook page or our homepage as well, then we'll announce that. We'll try to announce that quite widely. And if you've maybe in spring you saw when our Estonian computer-based exam searched for assessors, then we'll try to advertise that as much as they did. So we'll share it on Facebook, but also our homepage. And the goal is to get the ad out by the end of next week, maybe the beginning of the following, but we're starting as soon as possible with that. There was also a question about the interviewer and assessor training.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, very good. And I guess then, if there aren't any more questions before we move on to C1 Advanced. Okay.
I will continue then. As we had nearly 5,000 students last spring taking the C1 Advanced exam, then it is important to talk about C1 Advanced as well. What you have to know is that the C1 Advanced exam is intended for students whose English skills exceed the required level. And we have plenty of those students. But just to make clear, it is possible to register for the C1 Advanced exam only for those students who match the criteria. They need to have completed the mandatory English courses, and they need to have passed the electronic Cambridge English placement test to the result of C1 or higher, and they should not have been previously participated in the C1 Advanced exam organized by Horno, nor taken the English language state exam, nor replaced the foreign language state exam with the international certificate. So as long as they haven't taken the exam in a foreign language or replaced it, then they may qualify. Just a few words about the exam itself. It consists of 4 parts, and the student can complete it in approximately 4 hours. Reading and use of English is 90 minutes, writing part is 90 minutes, listening 40 minutes. There are breaks between those written exam parts, but you have to know that the speaking part may be on the same day, but it also may be on a different day. Usually the speaking exam will be conducted within 2 weeks of the written exam date. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about the results. So the Cambridge C1 Advanced exam allows the student to show C1 level, C2 level, or B2 level knowledge. When the student is not able to reach any of those mentioned levels, then there is the question that how can they prove their level of English, because Cambridge does not issue the certificate for any other language levels except for those B2, C1, and C2. And in the next slide, we can see that in case the student receives 142 to 159 points, there will be no certificate issued, but we will be able to have the results still entered in A's, and the student has passed the exam. It may happen that the student's result is below 142 points, which means that the result is not reported, and in this case we will enter 0 points in A's for that student, and this means that the student has not passed the foreign language state exam, and in this case the condition for graduating from high school has not been met. So this may happen as well. And moving on to giving overview about the results, then here we can see the results from last spring. We are happy to say that actually 83% of exam takers achieved C1 level or above. And this is really a very good result. And as you can see from this pie, then we had 19% of the almost 5,000 students who received C1 level from this exam. So the teachers have been doing amazing work. And in the next slide, there's a good overview of the results across the first part of the project. So we started with the project in 2019, and the first project ended in 2022, December. And here we can see that the strongest skills of Estonian students have been listening and speaking. Reading, when it comes to the last exam, reading was the weakest skill, with almost a third of candidates failing to achieve the target level of C1 or above. For writing, 73% of candidates achieved C1 or above last year. And this was a bit lower than in 2021, but still considerably higher than in 2019, when it was the first year of the project. So we have seen the improvement. Also, use of English showed improvement in the percentage of candidates scoring at C1 or above. So we are really happy about these results. And when we look at the results based on, okay, this is what I was explaining you just before. Now moving on, when we look at the pre-test, CEPT, this is this Cambridge English Placement Test, we call it CEPT. And when we look at the CEPT, it only consists of listening and reading tasks. You can also say that we test their language structure task. But we would really strongly advise that in addition to the CEPT results, the teacher can give feedback and recommendation to the student so that they can make the best choice for themselves when choosing to take the C1 advanced exam or not. Because achieving C1 level at CEPT gives good information about the current level, but it's let's say that mainly it gives you a hint that the student is ready to start preparing for the C1 advanced exam, but it does not mean that the student will definitely achieve C1 level from the C1 advanced exam. What to know about the CEPT? It can only be taken at school. We are in contact with the one contact person from each school, and this contact person is responsible for organizing this CEPT at their school. It's a computer-based test, but you have to know that the teacher or invigilator who is running the test at school has to make sure that the students stay in the time limit, which is a maximum 45 minutes. And the test is auto-mocked, so the students will be able to see the results instantly. And once the student has received C1 or above result from CEPT and also has met the other conditions, it will be possible for the student to register to the C1 advanced exam through ACE. And one thing to really point attention to is that when students are taking CEPT, they need to enter the data correctly. And for us, it's important that they will enter their personal identification number, isikukood, because based on that, we can allow the registration via ACE. And when it comes to registering through ACE, it's important that the student has their correct email address there, otherwise the registration may not go through. And yeah, when it comes to the exam, probably you already know that currently it's possible to take the exam either in a paper-based version or in a computer-based version. Last spring, we had about 70% of the students taking the computer-based exam, and every exam session we have bigger number of students who can take the exam on computer, and the goal is to eventually only offer computer-based version. Computer-based version also allows us to have 2 exam sessions per day, which is not common with the planned computer-based state exam in English. So this is the difference here, and it allows us to test more students easier. Yeah, and here are just a couple of links where you can find good preparation materials, and yeah, you can have a look at those yourself later.
We'll send those to the chat as well.
Yeah, that would be nice. And we continue with the important dates. As you can see here, then we organize C1 advanced exam twice a year. We have autumn session and spring session. Therefore, we have also 2 registration sessions, which are about a month or so before the exam. But we have been allowing testing at schools on 3 different sessions. It's usually in September, then also in December, and then in spring. And the dates will be on the websites as well. And last but not least, I will tell you more about the planned study. In cooperation with the Cambridge assessment, we are planning impact study about C1 Advanced in Estonia. The main aim or the key search question is what have been the impacts of introducing the C1 Advanced as a school living exam for English in Estonia, or it would be more correct to say that as the state exam for English in Estonia. We will study the student motivation to learn English, teaching and learning practices, also achievement of students in terms of language proficiency, stakeholder perceptions, and also impact on candidates after they have left school. And this data will be collected via questionnaires, focus groups, interviews, classroom observations, and also we will look into the exam results from the last 5 years. And when it comes to this study, then please let us know if you or your class or your school would like to volunteer and participate in the study. We will start contacting the schools in September about this, and during this next school year, we will carry out the study. And that's all from me now. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. Looks like there are no messages in the chat.
No, I only added the links there.
That's good. You can check the links there.
I have a question, if you may.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, some of my students were planning to take SEP test in June. And then they didn't. They received the codes, but they didn't take this SEP test. They are planning to do that in September.
Mm-hmm.
Are the codes the same, or they need to get new codes?
they need to get the new codes, and you have to make sure that the students are not taking the test individually at their home, but you have to collect them in a room, and then you also have to supervise them while
Right.
taking the
I'm
exam.
aware of that. I'm aware of that.
Okay. That's
Thank
great. Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
About any topics.
Yes,
really.
any,
Yeah,
not
not
just.
necessarily just
Mhm.
the Cambridge, but anything else
Mhm.
that we have been talking about.
And if you develop questions later, then we have included all of our emails here as well, which are also available on Hannah's website, and you probably know most of these as well. So if you have any questions about any of the topics that we've covered, or maybe not covered, then feel free to contact us. And this presentation will be made publicly available very quickly.
Around the week or so.
Around a week or so. And then also the recording of this entire webinar will be put on Hannah's YouTube channel. So all of this will be available for as long as that is active. If there are no more questions, then thank you for participating. We managed to finish even earlier than originally planned, which is always a good thing. We wish you a good day, and if you have any questions, then feel free to contact us.
Thank you.
Thank you.